Hello! Thank you for joining us today on Outside in Theaters YouTube Live. Happy Thursday. I am Santina Muha, and you're watching Rollin with my homies. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have our guest today, who is a friend of mine. I think we've known each other for like, I don't know, almost 10 years now. This is an actor, an advocate, and just like a funny person to hang out with. Please welcome to the show, everybody, Andy Arias.
Hi, guys. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here, Andy. How are you doing? I haven't seen you since the before times.
Before times, when it was before the dark times. No, it's great. I moved back to LA from the East Coast. So I missed the sun and now I'm back, but I'm good. You know, stuff is starting to open up, thank God. You can actually go get a cup of coffee and not feel like I die, but that's awesome.
Right. What made you go back east?
So I actually work for the government and I work on national policy for people with disabilities.
Great.
So I try to help get people with disabilities jobs all around the country. And so that's my day job. And to get that job, I had to actually work in DC and live in DC and be in DC. And then pandemic hit. And I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. My ass is going home. You could keep me, but I'm going home where my people are, and I'll see you later. And so that's what happened, and so that's why I'm back.
So you moved back here
in August, yeah.
Oh, okay. What was that like, moving in the middle of the pandemic?
Scary as hell, because everyone, like, you know, we're in wheelchairs, so we need help moving, we need help doing things, and nobody wanted to come into my house. They were like, I don't know you know, this was pre-vaccine, so I was super nervous because I didn't leave my house really, because, you know, we roll on wheels. I don't want to catch anything from anybody. So yeah, that was really weird, moving in the middle of the pandemic. Rent was great because everyone was like, you know, struggling. So rent was cheap and now it's high again. So yay for us. But yeah.
So, well, you mentioned that you're a wheelchair user, which of course, because you're on my show and that's kind of the premise. So you have CP, right? Cerebral palsy. That's your.
Yes. Yeah, I have CP. Yeah.
And so I want to know, DC, the Capitol, the White House, is DC wheelchair accessible?
Not as it should be. Like, there are certain parts, but it's very much like New York. Like, you know, like the trains are a little iffy, the buildings are a little iffy, you know, you're lucky if you can get into a building. But it's so funny because in California, I never had to call a place to ask them if they're accessible. In DC, that's standard practice to be like, hi, I'm coming with a group of my friends for dinner. Can I get into your building? Like, that's what you did in DC, or like in New York. But that's why I miss California too, is because, you know, I've never had to call a place and be like, hi, do you have a ramp? It's like obvious, you know? So
yeah,
they have work to do.
I still find a little bit more inaccessibility than I would like to find out here, but being a Jersey girl who moved, you know, also from the East to the West Coast, I definitely think California is doing a much better job, or the whole West Coast is doing a better job. To be fair, the West Coast is not one of the 13 original colonies, but this whole grandfathering excuse is kind of getting old. Literally.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, because you're going to age into your disability. You know, you and I are sitting our asses down when we're young and pretty, but a lot of people are going to be old and disabled, and they're going to be like, I want to get into that building too. So
yeah, right. And when they need it, that's when they'll change it.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I know. Well, you have also done you've done stand-up, right? You're a stand-up.
Yeah.
I don't know if when was the last time you did stand-up?
Well, I just did a virtual show last week. So I did a whole virtual show last week, and it was great. Lots of applause. And Nick Novicki, our friend, he's trying to get me out there a little more too, right? Because, you know, unicorns are cool now. So he's all about that.
What is a unicorn?
So I call myself a self-proclaimed unicorn because I'm gay, Latinx, disabled, I grew up poor. So I like fit all these intersections. And so I like to consider myself a unicorn because when you think about diversity, you're like, oh shit, there's more than one thing that Andy fits into. So I just call myself a unicorn. It makes it easier.
Oh my, okay, I want to talk about all of that. But
Yes.
first, while we're on the stand-up subject, I want to talk about that a little bit because I know that you've performed in New York and I know that you've performed here, and we were just talking about accessibility. Do you feel like that's a huge difference? Because I know I've done some performing in New York and I've had to be, carried and all the whole thing.
I've only been to one club, even in LA. I've only been to one club where they actually made a ramp for me because I was performing there so often that they were like, we're just going to buy a metal ramp. And funny thing is, they still had to push me up it because, the incline of a ramp isn't what makes it, the ramp itself isn't the accessibility, it's the incline. So they still had to push me up the ramp because there was no way I could do it. But LA clubs, New York clubs, they all still need to fully get with the accessibility program because I've been carried on stage like Cleopatra so much that it's just my first joke because why it takes the awkwardness out of, hi guys, I'm super special and I'm on stage now. Hi. So I have to make a joke about it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and don't we always have to make other people more comfortable with our disability?
Right? Because it's so awkward for them.
For them, yes. They're just too sad about it. How are they ever going to survive knowing we are disabled?
Right, exactly. I feel so bad for them.
I do too.
I know.
Yeah, well, it's okay. So so you just mentioned a whole bunch of intersectionality things that I want to talk about because this is kind of I always was, a lot of us, especially us with disabilities, we always kind of knew that differences was a topic,
Right.
But it seems right now to be sort of like a trendy thing to talk about. Oh my God, you're Latinx.
Right. Woo.
All of a sudden it's right. So, is there one thing that you identify with the most of all of these?
I don't know. I think my disability is not going anywhere, obviously. So that's a big thing. And, coming out as LGBTQ was huge for me. Being Latinx never went anywhere. It's always a thing, but you and I are both in the industry of acting, right? So they used to ask for ethnically ambiguous, which I like to say is can you pass for white? It's like, if you're ethnically ambiguous, can you pass for a white person? Oh, that's great. We'll cast you. But now they're looking at disability and saying, we want an African American or we want a Latinx person. And I'm like, that's interesting. So, but for me, I really want, the reason I use unicorn is because I want to be able to roll into any room and feel like I don't have to pick one or the other. Like, I feel like even in my day job or even in my acting career, I always have to, who am I going to be today? Am I going to be the funny gay guy? Am I going to be the Latin guy? Am I going to be the really serious disabled guy? And I want to be all those things most of the time, like 95% of the time. If I could be all of that, I'd be a much happier, together person. Yeah.
When did you come out of the closet as, when did you tell everybody you were identified as gay?
So I came out, it's funny because I came out when I was 14, but I grew up in foster care, which you know some about, but I went back in the closet until I was 17, because being disabled and being gay, for a lot of people, because you're living in systems or you're living by other people's rules, you can't really just come out and be, you got to kind of follow and toe the line of what other people want for you. So I went back in the closet. And then when I moved out at 17, I was fully out. I said, listen, and I did that whole bisexual thing where I was like, oh, girls are cool. I could be with a girl. But really, I was gay, and I was just on the train to Gayville and stop in bisexual junction for 2 seconds to like make me seem really cool. But and it happens, a lot of my friends do that, but it was really liberating to come out as LGBTQ, and I say queer person because it covers everything. But it was also very challenging only because of the perception of LGBTQness and disability. Like, it's still not widely accepted as like a full thing. You know, we've had one TV show with one character that was bridging the gap. But again, he was a white boy, and he was, he was not as disabled as me per se. So there's still a lot that we need to cover in the media to make people like me feel fully embraced by society,
Completely, yeah. And I often draw parallels between what it's like to be disabled and what it's like to be gay, not in the way of what it's like, but in the way that we're perceived in television and media, and the way that it's like very special episode, or it's like not a character, a regular character, but it's someone who pops in for an episode to teach the regular characters a lesson and then leaves for their, we never see that person again.
Right.
At least in the 80s and 90s and growing up to 2000s, that was what it was on TV. It was like the gay episode of that 90210, the wheelchair episode of 902. You know what I mean? So like, I felt like, Jesus, I understand, because I think growing up, people felt bad for me. But it's like, well, if that's what they're watching, then yeah, of course. Why wouldn't they? I feel bad for gay people now after watching this, even though I know gay people and I don't feel bad for them, but just the perception is off, right?
Yeah. It's like we still have the so sorry stories about disability, and we still have the, oh, I would not want to be them yet. We don't have any like fully realized empowered disabled images that I'm like, shit, those people are killing it, and I don't care if I'm disabled or not. I want to be that person.
Yeah, they make it seem, people make it seem like having a disability or being gay is like it's like a demerit. It's like like, so if you do anything else, they're like, wow, even though you're XYZ.
Right.
Yeah,
it's still a blemish on like being a whole person. Yeah.
It is. Do you feel like you've been discriminated against more for any of the things you identify with the most, or what do you think?
Well, I think because I'm Latinx, but I'm lighter skinned than a lot of my family. And I feel like my LGBTQness and my disability have definitely been a more discriminating factor in society. People often thought I could do less than the other folk, or because I was LGBTQ, people didn't want to take me as seriously. And so that's kind of why I got a serious job, because I'm like, screw this. I'm a serious person. I'm funny too, but I'm also serious. And here's what I could do. So I think it's mostly my LGBTQness and my disability that everyone thought I was this person, and I had to really raise the bar and show them that I was more than what they thought. And but I think I haven't really been discriminated against because of being Latino fully, and it's really hard to tell what somebody's discriminating you against for. I haven't. There's jobs that I went on interviews for, and people, for acting jobs or other jobs, and people are like, no, you're too extra, or your lifestyle's too much, which basically means you're too gay to play the role. But that's what people say. And it's just like, well, then make roles that are more diverse so I don't have to fit in your box of what is, you know?
Yeah, like are we trying to say Jim Carrey is not extra?
Yeah, talk about extra,
Or
right?
Jack Black is not extra. I mean,
Right?
you know, you
Yeah, exactly,
right.
exactly.
So when you went back in the closet, what did you do? Did you tell people never mind, just kidding, or did you just stop?
So I got a girlfriend for 4 years. That was a fun
Oh,
trip. Yes, Andy had a girlfriend. Hi. She's still on my Facebook, so she'll probably see this. Hello, Heather. What's up, girl? But she actually married another Andy. Good for them. But yeah, no, I kind of went back in and said, I'm still thinking about things. I'm very spiritual. So I grew up in religion a lot. So like, so take a unicorn, put him in Catholic school, and then say, but be your authentic self. And I'm like, what? It was just a lot of things going on in my little head. So because I love kids, I wanted to be a dad so bad. I still want to be a dad. So I thought maybe if I could make it work with a girl, I'd get my babies and then, I'd figure it out. But I wanted to be more me. And so by the time I hit 17, I called my girlfriend and I was like, I'm gay. Sorry. And she was like, I know. And I was like, good, because at least we're on the same page. But no, I think it's really important for people, like if they can come out or want to come out and it's safe, please do, guys. I mean, do it, because you won't fully get to love you and experience you unless you do that, and that was tough for me to get to.
yeah. Did you go to any Pride events last month? Because now we're sort of, last month was gay Pride, LGBTQ plus Pride. This month is Disability Pride
Yeah,
month. So we're right in the middle. So did you do any Pride months last month? Pride events
I
last
did. I did a bunch of virtual things. I
month?
went out to my first gay bar since pandemic. Like 2 weekends ago. It was so fun. It was so weird not wearing a mask. I was like, oh my God. I still stayed 6 feet apart. There's people dancing over there, and there was people dancing over here, and I'm like, stay away from me. Don't dance near me. No close dancing. But I did. It was super fun. I think dancing is such a liberating thing for our community, the LGBTQ community, because it just gives a sense of freedom. And if you're a disabled boy on wheels, doing wheelies on the dance floor, you're going to get a lot of attention. So I figured go for it.
Yeah. So did you go to any disability Pride events? I'm like not up on the parades. Do we have?
So I did a couple of virtual things, but they weren't here. They were in like Philadelphia and East Coast stuff, because people know me a lot on the East Coast because of my previous work. So yeah, I did a lot of virtual events for folks. I think the whole pandemic has opened up like Zoom and things for people to like experience an online life that we didn't experience before, right? So I think it's pandemic was only good for that one thing, is creating access for us to be able to do our stuff more freely.
Yeah, and it really was. I mean, even auditioning and just meetings, and I mean, I can just get so much more done in a week now. Like
Exactly.
almost too much
Yeah.
going on, sometimes. So so that's great. Now, for the disability, or for the not disability Pride, for the LGBTQ plus Pride, did you I don't know how, because I know, like, I've seen posts and I've seen people talking about, hey, these events need to be wheelchair accessible too. How is that? Is that getting better, or
I've actually worked with a ton of Pride events in previous years before pandemic to help them become more accessible.
Mhm.
But I think the community as a whole, the LGBTQ community, I love you guys, but honestly, like we praise and we want acceptance from others, but sometimes when we don't fit into their box again of like what is beautiful or what is worthy, they don't always think about us as part of the community. And it is kind of sad because I'm as much gay as I am disabled. Those two things aren't going anywhere and make me who I am. And if you would think they would understand that because they were marginalized, they have been marginalized, they are marginalized. And so I would feel they would embrace me more, but it's kind of like internalized ableism, like in their regard, like they can't see me as equal yet. So we're getting there, but not really. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
it's moving forward.
Okay, everybody,
Yeah.
listen to Andy because that's
Yes, get it to move forward faster. Yeah.
yeah. Did you ever experience internalized ableism?
Oh, yes. I went to school when I was younger to a fully like I would say like a disabled school, right? So it was a disabled school up until 3rd grade. And I remember in 3rd grade, and I didn't know it was ableism at the time because, I wasn't a smart, super smart Doogie Howser 3rd grader. But I remember transitioning from a regular class to a special ed class. And I remember saying to myself, oh, I can't hang out with those kids anymore because they're still in those classes and I want to be a normal kid. And so I fought a lot when I was in junior high and high school to be normal and not embrace my disability because again, I think when we were growing up, we just saw really sad, TV specials of being disabled. So we didn't want to live up to that. We didn't want to be that. So we pretend we didn't have a disability. So yeah, I did that a lot up until my early 20s. I really figured that I didn't want anything to do with the disability community. And now it's who I am. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I was the same way. I mean, if I saw somebody who I knew in a wheelchair at the mall and I was with my friends, I would hide. I'd go to the, Deb and start looking at clothes like, I don't want them to see.
Like, I don't know that person. Like, yeah.
Yes. I mean, and then I even too, like, I felt like I had to buck the system and go against what people were seeing on TV. So I started smoking cigarettes and it worked. People would go, you smoke? Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I thought it was cool that I was smoking because they just never imagined I would.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I partied a lot in high school because of that reason too. It's because people thought, oh, people with disabilities don't party, don't hang out. And so I purposely went that way and started partying and hanging out with, the wrong crowd because I thought I'm going to buck away from what everybody thinks I should be doing and do this because it's cool. And I want to be cool. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I totally did the same thing, which is, I'm glad that, and I hope that now this resurgence of acceptance is helping these middle school kids accept their bodies, accept their insides and outsides, because we did not do a good job of that in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Yeah, we just didn't. But to be fair, it wasn't our fault. I mean, we didn't see us.
We didn't do it. I mean, we, society, we are the victims of it.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably why, and hopefully as adults, we don't, we can break the cycle. I hope.
Yeah. We're better role models now, kids. Don't follow our previous example. Follow us now.
Yes. And listen, that generation did a lot of great stuff too, but they were image obsessed.
Yes. Yes.
So just so they know. You were in foster care. You mentioned that. You were in foster care until you were 17. So what was that like? I mean, how did that, what's the process? What was that like?
So it really pushed me to be as independent as possible, right? Because the system isn't set up for somebody in a wheelchair. So in a lot of ways, it was a blessing because it really pushed me to rely on me before anything else. So it really gave me a foundation of like, Andy, you got to take care of your own shit. And you got to make sure that if someone's not going to look out for you, you got to look out for yourself. And when you're disabled, sometimes you get trapped in these systems from parents or other systems that you can't get out of. So growing up in foster care, I really accelerated my independence because I just knew that whatever people were telling me, like, oh, you're not going to go to college, you're not going to have a job, you're not going to live on your own. I was like, okay, so all of that is bullshit. And I just got to move past all the bullshit and get to the other side. And so as tough as it was, because it was tough, and I'm actually writing a book about it right now, it really propelled me to move forward because it was like that fire under my butt to say, like, forget these people and just move forward, which if I had been more sheltered, I don't think that would have happened. I think I would be less, me and less independent if I was like falling into those systems.
Yeah. Now, did you live with different foster families along the way, or how did that work?
So I had like 6 different families that I moved around with. And then if they couldn't find me a family to live with, I had group homes. I was in state hospital a couple of times because you got to understand, like, for a lot of my youth, I had a social security check. And sometimes when you're in foster care, they get your social security check on top of foster care money. So people would take care of me for the money and not to take care of Andy. They'd be like, oh, I get a bonus if I take care of this kid with a disability. Sure, I'll do it. Doesn't mean they were ready to deal with somebody in a wheelchair or that they even wanted to. It was just a money thing for them. So a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. So it was tough moving around. I really didn't have a home per se. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere or felt like I had somewhere that really wanted me to be with them. You know what I mean? So yeah, it
Yeah.
was very tough.
Were the homes that you lived in accessible for the most part, or no way? Yeah.
No, I crawled around probably up until I was 16. I used to crawl everywhere because my wheelchair wasn't even wide enough to fit through doorways.
Oh my
So
God.
I either used walkers or
Mhm.
crawled. So I used to, my knees, they're much nicer now. Thanks, moisturizer. But my knees, my knees would be like fully calloused because I'd have to crawl on my hands and knees to get around. And it wasn't their fault. It was just the fact that, you know, my chair couldn't fit through doorways. So I had to figure it out.
Yeah. But you said they weren't all bad experiences, right? So you
No,
had.
I had my last family,
Mhm.
which I still consider family. I stayed with from the age of like 13 to 14 or 13 to 17, so for 4 years.
Mhm.
And, I really care about them and love them, but they really gave me a home to like build the foundation on. But I felt like I still needed to move out on my own and become independent because I still felt like the system wanted me to be a certain way and to do a certain thing. And I knew that my life was much more than they thought it could be. So I had to bust out of that. Even as much as they cared for me, I really felt like trapped by the system and by what people's expectation was of me.
Yeah. So then when you left and when you started to live on your own as more of an adult out of the system, where did you go first. And where did all this happen, this foster care stuff? Was that in
In
California?
Ventura. So I grew up in Ventura, which some people know about, but it's kind of like Santa Barbara. It's about an hour north from LA.
Okay.
And so I grew up there. And when I moved out, I was still in high school because I was 17. I had to get a job. My first job was taking tickets at a movie theater. And I crashed with friends on couches in different places until I could get a place of my own. And that took a while. That took a while because, I was low income. I had my Social Security check. I had me. And I was trying to figure stuff out. So I moved out. I moved around a lot, and then I found a place and started, finished school and tried college. College took me a while to get through because, I had to pay for most of that myself and figure that out. But working had always been a constant thing. Like I knew in order to get out of poverty and circumstances, I had to work. I had to bust my butt. I couldn't just sit on my ass, no pun intended, and make sure that people would take care of me because nobody took care of me before. So I knew in my adult life, nobody was going to take care of me. So I had to do it. So working was just a thing that I knew that I needed to do and wanted to do in order to move forward. But it's tough because, people judged me from my first job to up until the job I've had for 5 years, where people were like, "You can't do that. Why would we hire you? You are so disabled." They don't tell you that to to your face, but their face says it. They're like, what do I do with that? Like, you know what I mean? I mean, you've seen the face. I've seen the face. People have seen the face where it's like, I don't know how to react right now. What do I do? But you just got to let that go and move forward.
I mean, yeah. And also, couch surfing is hard enough when you're not disabled. So, I mean, you must have been crawling around your friends' apartments too, right?
Yeah. I definitely was. And to all my friends who were there for me for couch surfing, and thank you to your parents for not like freaking out, like, what do I do? But thank you guys. You guys were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, because that must have been tough. But then where was your first apartment or your first home that you were like, okay?
My first place was actually a 3-bedroom shack. It was in the bad part of town, but it was what I could afford. And to me, it was like my first place that was mine, because everywhere else didn't belong to me. And so I moved into this place in Ventura, and I lived there for 2 years. And then I moved to LA because my roommates got really crazy, and so I moved to LA and started my acting career and finished college. So that was how I ended up here.
And now you're here. Now you're living. You just got your new apartment. You'll be moving into Hollywood soon, right?
Yes.
Back to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So exciting! And you're pursuing this acting career, which is so great. Mm-hmm. And I mean, alongside what you're doing, working for the government, which sounds like you're giving back to people, just doing things that you wish somebody would have done for you, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Which is great. That's just already, that's enough. That you're even just doing that is enough. But on top of it, you're acting, you're auditioning, you're creating. You just were nominated for Best Actor for the Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge for a film that's very funny. I watched it. I think it was I want to say it was my favorite of the year, but then I'm like, I feel bad. Was it? But I think
the other folks, it was one of your top 5. We can say that.
It was my top 3 at least.
Okay, good.
For sure. It was called Extra Special, and you produced and starred in it, and you were just so funny in it. And I just knew as soon as I finished watching it, I was like, nominated. I just knew. You were just It was so funny, and the premise of it was so great. And you sort of alluded to the premise of it earlier when you talked about the one character, and you're talking about Special, right? You're talking about Aaron O'Connell. Does that really happen to you? Do you really get mistaken for Ryan O'Connell because you're a gay actor with CP?
That has never happened for me to get mistaken for Ryan O'Connell, but what has happened is I get this a lot because I've tried to sell my own show to big networks. I won't mention their names, but they'll say, we already have disability and this, so we're not looking for that from you. And I tell them, but I'm not that. You think you have that, but you don't have this. Like, it's two different things. It's like comparing you to Angela Rockwood. You two are two different, beautiful, amazing women. And I like orange and apples, right? So comparing me to just one gay character with a disability is so not where we need to be. But I've gotten a lot of that. It's like we already have that, so we can't do anything with you, or that's too much, then we're leaning too far the other way. So I do get it's a double-edged sword. He's opening doors for us, but it's also like there needs to be that pause of, okay, we haven't had that in a while, so we need to have that again, right? So there's that double-edged sword of like having too much of a good thing. But I think that if the industry itself just opens itself up and lets us be us, then it would be a lot easier for everyone to have their moment and to be who they are. You know what I mean? And so, yeah.
The industry is causing us to, inherently, like you mentioned Angela, and I love Angela, and Auntie and me and all the girls, right? I love them all. But when I was first coming up and I found out about all these beautiful actresses in LA in wheelchairs, I was like, oh my God, because I knew that they would be pitting us all against each other for the one crumb.
Right.
Like, it's different if there was a million things and it's like, okay, great, woo, yay, community. But when they're only doing one thing, and then you start throwing in all these other, and then as I moved here and I started meeting other girls, and now there's other funny girls in wheelchairs, and I'm like, I'm happy about it, but the industry needs to catch up.
Right. Yeah, no, they really do. I mean, they're getting better, but it's still like, I always feel like diversity is still sort of one note with them. They're still very like, okay, either it's your ethnicity or your disability. But you want both? That's too much. You know what I mean?
They're lying, because they're lying if they say that you're too diverse, because you know what they say about me is she's not diverse.
What?
Yeah, I've gotten that from a few casting directors. Oh, sorry, we're really looking to cast this role with someone who's diverse. So they're lying to all of us. I know.
Listen, industry, just because we are not on Showtime already doesn't mean you can't hire us. We need that first opportunity to get into the door, and then hello, we'll take over. But yeah.
How have you said you've been auditioning this year and stuff. How's that going? Do you feel like it's getting better? Are you getting more auditions?
I've gotten an audition at least one every week since I've been in, which is so amazing. But I think it's because the industry is really pushing diversity. And now when I audition, I don't feel like, oh, Andy has to play this more straight, or Andy has to play a white boy, or Andy has to be more disabled, because I'm sure you've gotten, can you be more disabled? And I'm like, shit, I'm pretty disabled. I don't know where you want me to go with this. How do you want me to play this? But yeah, it's good and it's bad, because it's sometimes when you're doing a self-tape, you're just going based on what you think they want. Right. And I always like doing it in front of a casting director because I like the feedback, right? And sometimes when they give you the feedback of what they're really thinking, you do that because you're a talented actor, and then you get the role. And so I think that's I'm hoping that comes back soon, so we can start doing that in the room with them, so they start seeing us all the way instead of from nipples up, because my nipples look all right, but the whole thing is nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. I don't know. I also like these types of auditions though,
Yeah.
because first of all, I don't feel like driving to Santa Monica every time.
Right.
But also, I know that I've gone to auditions before that are not accessible, and I've had to do it in the hallway. And now the whole group of casting people has to leave the room, and they're all kind of like,
Right.
they're chatting and they're drinking their coffees, and they're like, "Okay, go ahead." And I'm like,
I know, right? Like, yeah.
Doesn't set me up for success if I'm
Right.
nervous about what am I gonna, or they'll be like, okay, when you get here, the room's not accessible, so don't worry, we're gonna come to you, so you have to go to blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm like on the Amazing Race just to get to my audition. And by the time I get in, I'm like, what was I?
I've auditioned in front of a dumpster before because that was the only place where they could all meet. I'm like, the smell of rotten banana and me in an audition is amazing, but obviously I couldn't give my best because I was smelling garbage, you know? I mean, yeah. Anyway.
It's a scene. There's a
Yes.
lot of work to be done. Do you go out for primarily, have you gone out for any roles that are not disability specific lately, or not really?
Most of them have been disability specific. I've done a 180 a little bit and gone more towards the LGBTQ side of things. So I've connected with a bunch of LGBTQ directors and producers and said, listen, you probably don't have me in your bag of tricks. I'm good, and you could be super diverse if you cast a unicorn like me. And so I'm working on a couple of projects that aren't disability specific, but will highlight my LGBTQ-ness and bring disability to the forefront in that way. So, yeah.
I love that. Are you working on those projects independently, or I mean, like with, like
Yes.
projects?
Yeah. So it's stuff that I basically social media stalked some producers and directors and was like sending them my stuff, and they got back to me and they're like, yeah, we'll work with you. We have a couple of projects in 2021 and they're putting me in their projects. So
yeah, you're just reminding me. I'm writing out a note that I need to connect you with someone who I know that I think would love you.
Awesome.
Yeah, because that's what it's all about, right? Yeah. Networking and looking out for each other too, I think.
Right.
And is huge. And now that there are starting to be some more roles, we can look out for each other a little more and not panic that if I give you
something that it's going to take away from you. Yeah. I don't feel that anymore now in the industry, really, because I still don't see myself out there, right? I don't think there's another Andy-like character out there, so I don't worry as much now.
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't seen an Andy-like character, I don't think.
Yeah. Even Angela said the same thing. She was like, I haven't even seen anyone like you at all. So
no, and that's a crime. I'm sorry, but that is a crime.
Yes.
You have so much, it's like you're such a rich, layered character, and that's what people want to see, right? That's what people want to watch, especially now these days. It's not slapstick 80s multicam sitcom anymore, which was so fun to watch in those times. But I think audiences now are starting, they love Fleabag, they love things where there's
authenticness.
Yes. Dig in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You agree, right? Do you have an agent?
I do. I think we have the same. Are you with Gail?
I'm not with Gail. I know everybody's with Gail, which is so cool, but I'm actually not.
So I'm with Gail, and I'm actually looking for a new management company because Gail's my agent, but I'm looking for a good manager because you need both really to hit you up on both sides for what you want to do. And actually, there's one that focuses specifically on LGBTQ things, which I'm trying to hit the industry on all fronts, right? So Gail can do my disability or LGBTQ, but if I go with a gay manager, I'm going to be like, listen, people in West Hollywood, you need to get me where I need to be in this area. So, yeah.
Totally. Mwah. That's a great combo. And that's a great idea. And that's a great level of self-awareness that you have because, we're actors. So we kind of can't say, hey, don't judge me by the way I
Right.
look or because that's
Right.
the career we chose,
Right.
So we kind of have to let them judge us a little.
We chose a very hard industry to be in, but I'd rather knock out the first barrier and say, like, yeah, I'm gay as Christmas, but I can act any way you want. But if you want this as is, here's what you can get, right? Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. I agree. And I'm so happy to see that you're taking, it sounds like you've always done this, but taken things into your own hands. And I wish that for everybody, I wish that people wouldn't take no for an answer as
Right.
much as they do, because we hear a lot of no.
Yeah, we do. And everything we do, really, not just acting, everything in life is like, well, maybe you can't do that. Well, maybe I can.
Yeah, and every time that you push and do it, you're opening a door for the people behind you that want to do it as well, which is, and like I said, the fact that your day job is, what you do, you're already very aware of that. So I just think that's really, really cool.
Awesome.
I want, before, because we're almost at the end, did this not fly by? Right?
Yeah, I was like, wait, we're done? What happened?
Well, we're almost there, but we cannot go without talking about dating, because I think we're both on the apps right now.
Oh my gosh.
And it is bleak. It is a thing. It's a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about what it's like, what is your process as far as, the chair, and what do you like, how do you talk, what do you do?
So I have a lot of rules, actually, just to keep my sanity.
Okay.
So I have a 72-hour rule. If I start chatting with someone, first of all, you could see my wheelchair in the photo. So if you swipe right on me, hello, I'm in a wheelchair, get over it. But if we're chatting and you don't respond to me in between 48 and 72 hours, I don't even say anything. I just unmatch you, because I figure we don't have time. I don't have time. You obviously don't have time to figure that out. And there are so many flakes in the Tinders and the Bumbles and the OkCupids that I just feel like, I don't know, guys, men, gentlemen, boys, you need to wake up, because I feel like people are just always going for the better thing, right? Like, I will swipe and say hello, but I'm gonna keep all my options open, like they're at a buffet. And I don't have time for that.
That's exactly right. That's what I say. Dating these days has become like ordering food off of a menu. You're like, I'll try that. And then you get it and you're like, actually, this is a little spicier than I thought it was going to be. So I'm just.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your, like, do you like when somebody asks you about your disability up front? Do you want them to wait a little bit? How do you feel about that? Because I have some feelings.
I would rather somebody ask me. I would rather somebody be straight out and be like, I don't know about this. What's that about? Or does this work? Now, if you're going to be gross and ask me if I can have sex, like within the first 5 seconds, we're probably not going to be a match. But if we go to dinner and we hang out and then you're like, what's this about? I'm cool with that. But
okay, good.
Yeah.
I just had a guy message me out the gate that he wanted to know if I can, what my sexual function was, because not being able to give his partner an orgasm was a deal breaker for him.
Oh
As if he's given every partner he's had
an orgasm. Yeah.
Please. And also, like you said, out the gate, that's what you're asking me? Really? You don't even want to know what college I went to? I mean, come on.
Right. Like,
dinner first.
Know my name, know my favorite color, and know something other than that about me before I talk about sex. Like, that's just the thing for me.
And does he ask? And I would like to know if he asks every girl that, because not every, every girl is different, whatever. Every person is different in bed, right? So why, again, it's just another example of society trying to put, us in a box.
I think people feel too that a lot of the times, because we are in wheelchairs, they can get away with a lot of shit, right? And we don't deserve the level of respect that they would pay another person sometimes. So I always tell people, no, I'm expensive. You like, we were joking before, like, if I go on a first date with someone and they don't pick up the check, there isn't going to be a second date. Like, this is not, I am not a gold digger, but I'm definitely not cheap either. And that goes on many levels. So yeah, you gotta show up to date me. You can't just phone it in and be like, you're gonna be so happy because you're disabled and I'm paying attention to you.
Yes, that's right. You're not desperate.
Yeah, no, I'm not desperate. I'd much rather be single than with the wrong person.
Oh, totally.
Yes.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Because you respect yourself.
Exactly. I'm worth a lot. That's for sure.
That is for sure. That's for sure. Have you, what do you feel about, have you gone out with anybody who was attracted to the disability? What's your feelings on that?
So I had a funny story that happened, and I'll be really quick because I know we're wrapping up, but there was a guy who was talking about his mother a lot, and we dated for 4 months before we went back to my place. And he talked about his mother a lot, and his mother was in a wheelchair. And me, I didn't connect the dots about the wheelchair, the mom, and me. I was just so enamored with this really gorgeous person trying to date me. And then it ended up, he had this whole wheelchair fetish thing that I had no idea about. And I was like, listen, I'm glad you respect this, but I don't want you to love this, because this is part of me, but it's not me. This wheelchair is part of me, but it's not me. It's like someone dating me because I'm Latin, and only because I'm Latin, not anything else. It's just weird. So yes, it's happened. It's weird. Don't recommend it unless they have a lot of money, then maybe you could deal with it. But other than that, I would not recommend.
Yeah, well, because I mean, that's extra, because, well, not only was he sort of fetishizing the wheelchair or the disability, but also he had a serious mommy complex, it sounds like. Which
for me, that was my bad for not catching on to that. I mean, be aware, if they talk about their mom in a wheelchair more than 3 times in one sitting, you might have a problem.
Listen, if they talk about their mom at all more than 3 times in one sitting.
Yes.
For me, because I don't know. I don't love that. I know, marry someone who treats his mother well. Okay, fine, I get it. But marry someone who's obsessed with his mother, you're gonna have to.
You got competition there, because you're not gonna be able to cut those strings for nothing. So, yeah.
Exactly. And they're gonna expect you to do everything the same way. And I'm not doing it.
I'm no one's mama, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you still want kids someday, right? And you're still.
I do. I want kids. I'm actually producing a film called Danny's Twins. It'll be out in 2021 about my friend who had twins in pandemic, and she's a quad. But filming that movie with her, producing it, has really made me want kids more. So if anyone at an adoption agency is listening, don't discriminate against us because I'm gay or disabled, because that has happened. People have said to me, you would never get a kid because you're too disabled and you're gay on top of that. So why would we try to give you a kid? So it's something that still needs a lot of work in our society. So, but I hope to be a dad soon someday. But I don't want to end it on a sad note. So,
it's terrible, because you would be, I mean, look, everything, we just chatted for an hour, and I think that anybody watching already has learned so much and probably is inspired. And, and so for you to have a child, you would be creating and molding and shaping a great human to put out in the world. So,
Yes.
hello.
Yeah.
And if you needed a little extra help, whatever. It takes a village, as they say.
Everybody needs a little extra help. And so I think that I would find that support system when I had my kid. I would have that around.
Right. You're clearly resourceful. That's the thing with people with disabilities too. We're resourceful. We adapt. We know the right questions to ask. We know when to ask for help. We know where to go for help. So that's such a bullshit excuse. I mean, it all. But anyway, we do have to end, even though I could talk to you for another hour. But I want to know what. So you already mentioned this movie coming out. What other things? What should we be looking for from Andy Arias?
So I will be coming out with a book in 2021, 2022 about my life. So if you guys want to hope for that, it's called Rolling on Broken Glass is the working title. And so that'll be out soon. And yeah, the film Danny's Twins is coming out, and hopefully I'll be doing a lot more stand-up around the city. So look out for the funny gay guy on wheels, and find me on social media. Andy's Wheels is my Instagram with an S and a Z.
What is it spelling? At?
It's at Andy's, ANDYS, and then Wheels, WHEELZ is Insta. And then Andy's Wheels with all S's on Twitter. So find me there. And I'll just be coming up with stuff. I have a Facebook Live show called Wednesdays with Andy. You can catch it every Wednesday. I interview people like you, which I need to have you on the show, and people from the political side of things. So disabled, entertainment, political, all of that is on there every Wednesday on Facebook Live. So
okay, great. Yeah, everybody follow Andy and follow along, because and if you haven't watched what is it, Extra Special? Extra Special.
Yeah.
Go find it and watch it, because it's
funny.
Very funny. It's very funny. It's on YouTube, right?
It's all over YouTube. So yeah, check it out.
So check it out.
Yes.
And thank you so much, everybody, for watching. As usual, thank you for being here on Outside in Theater. Give us a follow on your preferred social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook at Outside in Theater, which is THTR. And also you can follow me at Santina Muha on all of those platforms as well. And we'll see you again. We'll be back 2 Wednesdays from now, or 2 Thursdays from now. Thanks everybody for watching. Everybody stay safe. Happy Disability Pride Month.
Yay.
July. And yeah, have a great holiday, everybody, and stay safe. And thanks for watching. Andy,
bye, guys.
Great guest. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.